Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, honored delegates, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this high-level panel discussion on digital transformation in support of finance and investment, organized by the Islamic Corporation for the Insurance of Investment and Export Credit, ISIC, the insurance arm of the Islamic Development Bank, ISDB Group. This panel discussion is the first of two ISIC side events as part of the ISDB Group Private Sector Forum, which is an established part of the proceedings leading to the annual meetings of the Board of Governors of the ISDB. The second ISIC high-level panel discussion on how credit and political risk insurance can help facilitate climate action will be held tomorrow in this very hall at 12:10 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, the ISDB Group, including ISIC, has prioritized digitalization as a key objective in delivering its mandates. ISIC is committed to investing more in supporting member states to narrow the digital divide between rich and developing countries and within states and bridge the transition to a digital economy. ISIC has identified the role of technology in trade tech, as one of 5 key megatrends impacting global trade and investment over the next year. Its strategic risk priorities over the next 3 years include the deployment of extensive digitalization of processes and key risk indicators to flag emerging risks. ISIC is also leading the OIC Business Intelligence Center initiative, which will play a key role in enabling digitization of the credit ecosystem in member states that will facilitate further cross-border financing. In short, digital technologies have an enormous potential to unlock economic opportunities in trade, investment, agriculture, manufacturing, and services. Distinguished guests, we have an impressive list of prominent international speakers ranging from national and regional agencies, including the Central Bank of Egypt, Africa and Finance Corporation, Egypt Post, ISIC, and digital and fintech solutions providers and the commercial sector. We are all keenly waiting to hear their ideas and remarks on a topic, including digital financial services, that is optimistically considered by some as a very important step for financial inclusion, customer well-being, and even sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the proceedings, we would like to show you a short video with a specific focus on ISIC's initiative for establishing the OIC Business Intelligence Center.
The rapid growth of credit information systems around the world has led to more symmetry between borrowers and financial institutions than ever. But credit information systems in OIC countries remain far behind global standards. In 2019, private credit bureau coverage was estimated at 15.5% compared to the OECD's 66.8%. Based on their credit intelligence, 4 quadrants of financial maturity levels have been identified in OIC markets. The potential benefits of improving credit information systems in OIC areas could be vast, including an estimated $220 billion boost in private sector lending, an estimated 8% reduction in rates of non-performing loans, an increase in foreign direct investments, improved trade within OIC countries, and economic inclusion and empowerment for everyone. Introducing OIC Business Intelligence Center, or OBIC, a cutting-edge platform that aims to drive economic transformation, anchored in its support of ISDB Group's mission of enabling innovative infrastructure to drive economic and social progress. OBIC will be a scaled multilateral solution building on the ISIC's work with the sovereigns, global partners and solution providers, with solutions tailored to the maturity level of each country's credit ecosystem. We look to offer a solution bundle comprised of 2 key categories: capacity building and credit intelligence delivery, with a total of 10 related service offerings. We envision a hub-and-spoke approach with 4 regional groupings across the OIC regions, covering South and Southeast Asia, MENA and Eastern Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa and Caribbean, and Central Asia and Europe. This will enable full regional credit intelligence coverage, including consideration for official languages. As a crucial part of our implementation strategy, OBIC will be initiating pilot programs with select member states to test and apply our services and demonstrate our value for local communities, regional economies, and the world. OBIC will successfully boost OIC credit lending, foreign direct investments, and intra-OIC trade, broadening the facilitation of financial inclusion and bringing greater prosperity to OIC members and the world. If you are an OBIC hub interested in learning more or being a part of the initial pilot programs, we welcome you to reach out.
Without further ado, I would like to invite His Excellency Mr. Osama Qaisi, CEO of ISIC, to address this audience with his opening remarks. Please step up.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We cannot start any of our discussions today without talking about the ongoing COVID pandemic and the conflict in Ukraine that have exposed the vulnerability of globalized economies to various shocks. These include supply chain disruptions, rising food and energy prices, spiraling inflation, and cost of living crises severely affecting people worldwide. While these impacts have stalled the recovery from the pandemic, the consensus is that, although initially painful, they will be largely contained. But developing countries, especially in Africa, as per the IMF, will be the slowest to recover, exacerbating inequalities and pushing millions more into poverty and hunger. According to the World Trade Organization, global trade has been more resilient during the pandemic than during the 2008 global financial crisis, reaching $4.8 trillion during the crisis compared to $6.2 trillion during the pandemic. Similarly, according to the OECD, the global foreign direct investment grew by 88% to reach $1.8 trillion in 2021 compared to the same level with an increase of 37% above pre-pandemic levels. In both cases, the gains have primarily been driven by OECD states within the developing countries are left behind. And so what I'm trying to say here, even though we had the amounts of foreign direct investment increase, but most of it, the inflow went to the affluent countries and not to the countries that need it. A key driver in digitization and automation of trade and post-trade services, which has proliferated in recent decades alongside the considerable advances in fintech. Harnessing digitization for development through trade and investment must be a core ongoing objective for all stakeholders, especially governments, development agencies, export credit agencies, businesses, and customers. The fintech revolution, including the application of blockchain technology, is gaining momentum in the global market, especially in asset facilitation and intermediation. We see it as well manifesting itself in trade services and payment solutions, thus opening up opportunities for banks, intermediaries, and technology solution providers. The pandemic has accelerated the global transition toward a digital economy, but uneven access to new technologies has already resulted in digital divide and inequalities. In many countries of the OIC and member countries of ISEC, the implementation of digital strategies remain an embryonic stage. Innovation leads to regulation whose gaps are evident in the digital space. For ISEC, there is an added consideration. We are uniquely the largest Sharia-compliant multilateral insurance institution. Sharia compliance with transaction structures, documentation, and digitally automated processes that is dealing with platforms and connectivity is becoming more and more vital to all of us. This is crucial in promoting the orderly development of the digital revolution and preempting a digital divide in the Islamic finance sphere. Establishing digital infrastructure frameworks that can also support the cross-border regulation and harmonization is vital for e-commerce and mitigating the cybersecurity issues. Several technology solution providers have launched integrated service solutions and platforms for Sharia-compliant trading, risk management, capital, and many market operations. This development has enabled Islamic financial institutions to seek transactional flexibility, to select an alternative to the counterparties they contract with for their trade requirements. The digitization of Murabaha transactions, for instance, have expedited obtaining financing and facilitation of procedures to meet the urgent need of clients. Digitization as well enables parties to embed the ESG and SDGs and sustainability consideration in the technology and system processes. Ladies and gentlemen, the Islamic Development Bank Group, including ISEC, has prioritized digitalization. At ISEC, we are committed to investing more in supporting our member countries' efforts to narrow the digital divide between rich and developing countries and with states and bridge the transition to a digital economy. ISEC has identified the role of technology in the trade as one of 5 key megatrends impacting global trade and investment over the next few years. Our strategic risk priorities over the year 2021 and 2024 include the development of extensive digitalization of processes, reporting, quantitative modeling, monitoring tools, and key risk indicators to flag emerging risks. The future of trade tech and its impact on global trade and FDI flows will see transactions and interactions between clients, brokers, underwriters, insurers, reinsurers, and claim providers becoming seamless to the insurer of the not too distant future. Trade tech encompasses digital security, transaction integrity, digital letters of credit, and related fintech solutions such as cryptocurrencies, digital payment gateways, and digital supply chain solutions that drives trade efficiencies. The long-term outlook, as I see it, is for the e-commerce exchanging connectivity to the entire trade ecosystem, for paperless processing, and financing, 3D printing, and IP will become essential business drivers. ISEC is also, as we have seen in the video, leading the OIC Business Intelligence Center. It's an initiative for the whole Muslim Ummah, which will play a key role in enabling MS digitization of the credit ecosystem that will ultimately facilitate further cross-border financing. The vision for the OPEC is to provide the OIC member countries with best-in-class business growth and risk management intelligence ecosystem. Coordination with private and public stakeholders ensures the legal framework governing the collection, the treatment, and sharing of business data. The OPEC objective is to create a shared platform through the OIC member countries to provide a cross-border credit registry and linked credit bureau services, compile and coordinate data, and offer advisory and capacity training program services while efficiently adopting modern technology for credit reporting. The OPEC aims as well to accelerate trade with and investment into the OIC member countries by providing businesses with a detailed picture of the OIC business performance and creditworthiness, helping them make informed decisions and allocate capital with confidence. The digital transformation, you would agree with me, was underway before the pandemic in trade facilitation, intermediation, investment platforms, banking, insurance, credit enhancement, e-commerce, and risk management. These developments would be more coordinated under the aegis of the WTO and the United Nations CITREA. There are also critical cross-border risks associated with frontier technologies, which require global cooperation and coordination, notably in cybersecurity and AML regulation and technology transfers. The digital divide in access to the internet between regions and income groups is profound. According to the International Telecommunication Unions, the least developed countries have an internet penetration rate of 21% compared to 87% in the developed world. Data and digitization can also drive SME growth. SMEs are the backbone of economies, accounting for over 90% of economic activities, 50% of jobs globally, and some 50% of GDP in developing countries. In OIC countries, 54 enterprises per 1,000 population are SMEs. Barriers to entry include the cost of adopting new technologies, competition for digital talent, a knowledge gap, and a lack of confidence in SMEs. Digitization would also enhance financial inclusion by narrowing the gap between the formal and informal sectors, while the upside could be enlarging the tax base, the downside could be job losses. Digital transition thus must be creative and coupled with retraining. Digital technologies have an enormous potential to unlock economic opportunities in trade, investment, agriculture, manufacturing, and services. But as a recent report reminds us, I end my speech with this: despite ubiquity of digital transportation and technology, value creation only flows from combining multiple components of the economy into a one ecosystem that we are trying to put together for the OIC community. With this, I end and I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Qaisi, for your insight into some of the issues relating to digital transformation in finance and investment and its impact on development. We will have some time for questions but later in the program, but for now we are honored to have with us His Excellency Dr. Sharif Farouk, Chairperson of Egypt Post, regarded as a national institution endeared to every Egyptian family and part of the country's culture. Please step up.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيدات والسادة الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بالنيابة عن معالي الوزير السيد الدكتور عمرو طلعت وزير الاتصالات وتكنولوجيا المعلومات، وبالأصالة عن نفسي أتوجه لكم بالشكر لدعوتكم الكريمة على المشاركة في الاجتماع السنوي رقم 47 لمجلس محافظي البنك الإسلامي للتنمية 2022 تحت رعاية فخامة السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي رئيس الجمهورية. حيث يعد هذا الحدث فرصة لتدارس التطورات الحديثة واستشراف سبل توطيد العلاقات الاقتصادية بين الدول الأعضاء في ظل التغيرات الدولية المستمرة، بالإضافة إلى فرص التباحث بين مؤسسات التمويل المشتركة والمشاركة وتعظيم الاستفادة من الخدمات والتمويلات. السيدات والسادة الحضور الكريم، إن استراتيجية وزارة الاتصالات وتكنولوجيا المعلومات تدعم وبقوة تحقيق رؤية مصر 2030 من خلال بناء مصر الرقمية بما تحويه من أهداف لتطوير البنية التحتية لتكنولوجيا المعلومات والاتصالات، وتعزيز الشمول المالي، وبناء الإدراك وتشجيع الابتكار، وضمان الأمن المعلوماتي وحماية البيانات وفقا لأعلى المعايير الدولية. ولتنفيذ تلك الاستراتيجية تم توجيه استثمارات ضخمة للبحوث والتطوير وتقديم فرص تدريب مكثفة وبناء شراكات فعالة بهدف تكوين قاعدة من الخبراء في مجال التكنولوجيا المتقدمة مثل الذكاء الاصطناعي وعلوم البيانات وإنترنت الأشياء للتصدي للتحديات التي تواجهنا. على الرغم من الاضطرابات التي حدثتها الجائحة، إلا أنه كان له أثر في خلق حلول مختلفة لكثير من القطاعات. أظهر الاستعداد المسبق الذي قامت به وزارة الاتصالات وتكنولوجيا المعلومات من إنشاء بنية تحتية معلوماتية قوية، وهو ما دعم وبقوة قدرة مؤسسات الدولة على تخطي هذه الفترة العصيبة عن طريق استخدام المنصات الرقمية والتقنيات الرقمية لضمان استمرارية الأعمال. كما سبق وأن قامت وزارة الاتصالات وتكنولوجيا المعلومات بتنفيذ العديد من المبادرات لتطبيق التقنيات الرقمية المتقدمة لخدمة المواطنين بشكل أفضل وزيادة الإنتاجية ودعم الاقتصاد الوطني، بالإضافة إلى العمل على نشر ثقافة استخدام الإنترنت وتسهيل سبل وصول المواطنين إليه. إن التحول الرقمي في المؤسسات المالية يشكل الركيزة الأساسية وحجر الزاوية لتعزيز الشمول المالي وتحسين الأداء للحصول على فرص أعلى للتنمية المستدامة وتسهيل عملية نفاذ وتوسيع دائرة المستفيدين من الخدمات، وتظهر أهميته جليا في العديد من الحلول من بينها توفير وتنويع الخدمات المالية الرقمية المقدمة للعملاء، إتمام عمليات الدفع والشراء وتحويل الأموال والمعاملات عبر الإنترنت وتطبيقات الهاتف المحمول، إتاحة كافة المعلومات أمام العملاء والمستثمرين بما يؤثر بالإيجاب على قراراتهم الاستثمارية، تتبع المعاملات من البداية حتى النهاية وإتمامها في وقت أقل وترشيد تكاليفها مقارنة بالمعاملات التقليدية، تيسير عملية ورود وتداول العميل على حساباته على مدار اليوم، أيضا تأمين كافة المعاملات الإلكترونية بما يمنح مزيدا من الثقة للمؤسسات المالية. وبذلك فقد أصبح التحول الرقمي من أهم المجالات الاستثمارية للمؤسسات المالية العاملة وللبنوك خاصة، بما يوفره من تحديد لسلوك المستفيدين والمستثمرين لقياس رضاهم عن الخدمات المقدمة، ووضع الصورة الصحيحة أمام متخذ القرار لإحداث تغيير وتطوير آليات العمل. ولم يعد التحول الرقمي ضربا من الرفاهية، بل صار جزءا أصيلا من الأعمال لتحقيق تطلعات العملاء، الأمر الذي سيكون له مردود قوي وإيجابي على الأرباح وسرعة دوران رأس المال وجذب نوعية جديدة من العملاء وتخفيف العبء عن الفروع التقليدية ونقل المعاملات إلى الفروع والتطبيقات الإلكترونية، وما سينتج عنه جذب مزيدا من الاستثمارات فاتحا مجالا واسعا لعمليات التمويل والاستثمار. قبل أن أختم كلمتي لكم، اسمحوا لي أن أنقل لكم تجربة البريد المصري، أحد أذرع وزارة الاتصالات وتكنولوجيا المعلومات، وهو المؤسسة التي أتشرف أن أكون رئيسا، والذي نجح في تطبيق أفضل الحلول التكنولوجية على كافة الخدمات والمعاملات، بما يتواكب مع متطلبات خطة التمكين الرقمي، وبما يضمن تحسين مستوى الخدمات المقدمة للمواطنين والاندماج والتكامل المالي بين الهيئة ومختلف مؤسسات الدولة، من خلال توظيف كافة الإمكانيات لخدمة المجتمع بكافة شرائحه. خلال فترة الجائحة نجح البريد المصري في ضمان استمرارية الأعمال وتقديم الخدمات المالية وصرف المرتبات والمعاشات خدمات التمويل متناهي الصغر بالنيابة عن الشركات العاملة في هذا المجال، تزامنا مع خدمات التجارة الإلكترونية البريدية دون توقف أو تأخير. استمرارا لهذا النجاح، قام البريد المصري بطرح تطبيق يلا سوبر آب، والذي يقدم حلول مالية وغير مالية مبتكرة للأفراد والتجار والشركات باستخدام أفضل النظم، بالإضافة إلى إمكانية الادخار والاستثمار ومراقبة وتتبع المعاملات اليومية، وهو ما يعد نموذج رائد للمؤسسات المالية في عمليات التحول الرقمي، وهو ما جذب العديد من المستثمرين والشركاء الراغبين في عقد شراكات مع البريد المصري خلال الفترة الأخيرة. وفي النهاية نتمنى لكافة السادة المشاركين في هذا الملتقى خالص التوفيق وصولا لمنتهاهم من هذه المشاركات الإيجابية التي أتمنى أن تكون خطوة ونقلة في مواجهة التحديات بما سينتج عنه من شراكات بيننا. أشكركم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Farouk for your very interesting remarks and experiences of digital transformation at Egypt Post, which has impacted on various sections of society through services such as pension and aid disbursements, government payments, and electronic collection with notification service and mobile telephony applications. I'm sure that these will be further explored in the panel discussion, which has come, or the time for has come now. Our panel discussion includes an expert group of international panelists. These comprise of Dr. Rashanin, Assistant Sub-Governor, FinTech and Innovation, Central Bank of Egypt. Mr. Emeka Onia, Senior Manager, Innovation and Product Development, Afrexim Bank. Mr. Ahmed Mansour, Executive Secretary General, Egypt Post. Mr. Mohammed Khatib, President, Middle East and Africa and Global Head of Islamic Banking, Essential Software. And Mr. Osama Bukhari, Chief Executive Officer at Felis International Group. And I now hand over to Mr. Rafati Shiko, Chief Executive Officer, our standard, who will moderate the panel discussion.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We begin in the name of God, the most merciful, the most beneficent. It's an honor to be here, and I will say that we have exciting panelists. We have representatives from private sector, from technology companies. We have a government regulator in financial services. We have a government agency that's serving people with its services. So I'm excited, and a multilateral. So I'm excited to hear and share with you real examples of digitalization and its role in enabling finance and trade finance and investment. So a couple of quick things. I wanted to set the context a bit, but Excellency Osama and His Excellency Sharif had shared the great context of the importance of digitalization in our region, in our ecosystem. So I will not put a lot of context. A couple of things I just wanted to highlight. In fact, one of our panelists, Mr. Osama, had mentioned to clarify that the difference between digitization and digitalization. And this is as we are all here to learn something and apply in our practices. So digitization would be where we might just automate, let's say, a document and turn it into an online form or data. But digitalization is the whole process of enabling digitization towards a business purpose and really rethinking the process and the business use of the digital opportunity. So it's important to have some of these basics down as we get to the brass tack of the impact. The other thing I wanted to just highlight is that we talk about fintech and trade tech and digital tech as if tech didn't exist before. And I've had this conversation with some of the panelists earlier. We had some really good chat. In fact, technology has been there, right, for the better part of the last maybe through the past century even, in different evolutions. So the latest evolution of the Web 3.0, or what we call, the World Economic Forum called the new tech, and we're talking about fintech or trade tech, is the latest evolution of new technologies that are helping us leapfrog further using these solutions. So it's not to mean that technology didn't exist before. We're just talking about the next level that's helping us leapfrog. Okay, so with this context, so I'll just jump in, given we don't have that much time, and we'll start with Russia as the central bank's lead champion of driving fintech and innovation. You shared with us behind some of the great, I asked what were the greatest accomplishments that you're proud of, and you shared 3 very exciting ones. If we can start with, in context of those achievements, and you will share with the group what those achievements are, how some of those would apply to supporting trade and finance, or supporting the business ecosystem in general.
Okay, hello, hi, thank you, and welcome to Egypt for everyone that is visiting, the guests and the members of the ICDB. And you're absolutely right. Since we've started to have the fintech as the focus or on the top agenda of the Central Bank of Egypt since the launch of our strategy back in 2019, we've been working on a very methodological steps and way for us to grow and to thrive the fintech ecosystem. And yes, we have we've achieved a lot. We've mentioned the launch of our Regulatory Sandbox and the launch of the fintech focus fund with our 3 national banks have just put their efforts together to have the largest fintech focus fund, and hopefully in the region, with they've closed on $100 million and hopefully to reach the 150 very soon. And the fintech and innovation hub with the one-stop shop of the fintech. So we have a lot of exciting things in order for us to thrive the fintech ecosystem in Egypt. And for the purpose of one thing, it's a no-brainer that we are fintech for inclusion. So we need the digital financial solution that actually helps us to grow the financial inclusion and to support the financial inclusion and to become a less cash society, of course. And this comes with relevant solution to the market, like what exactly are we trying to solve and what exactly are we trying to reach for us to help the consumer to be more financially resilient and to have more financial needs. And this is the most important thing. So we've played a pivotal role in accelerating digital access to finance, digitizing the access to finance. So we're going to find new solutions happening on digital lending based on behavioral scoring to serve the underserved, especially the women. We have digitization of the supply chain finance to help the MSMEs, putting finance or embedded finance in B2B marketplaces to help the micro merchants on the ground. So we're doing a lot of efforts to enable digital solutions to help or to mature the retail and the MSMEs market. And to be on. I'll leave the rest of the questions so we can move on.
That's great. I think my congratulations. At least I think this fund that you're mentioning that has been formed is an incredible. I don't know across the member countries if there's a bigger example of this formation of such a fund, $100 million supporting fintechs by the leading financial institutions and stakeholder. Congratulations, as well as the regulatory sandbox and also the hub that's coming up. So yeah. I think that's great. I will jump back and forth a bit, and I'm going to jump to Mohammed, getting straight to the brass tack of trade, finance, and investment solutions. Can you speak to the fact that we know many in the ecosystem know of the product IMAL? IMAL as a solution that you developed, one of the pioneering technology platform for Islamic financial institutions. And now with the Essentio, you're working on some trade finance related platform, I believe it's called Trice. Can you speak to what is Trice? How is it facilitating trade finance and the ecosystem of the region around this?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Isaac for inviting me to be again between friends and have this great discussion. We at Azentio and formerly Path Solutions have created a lot of technologies for the banking sector and trade finance. We have a full module on trade finance. But in the last few years, we recognize that the fintechs are becoming critical disruptors of this industry. And we needed to address and work and be part of this new ecosystem that is being created. And we actually created two fintechs already. One of them is live. We started with launching it in Oman, and we are looking, right now we are trying to launch it in Saudi Arabia and UAE, which is called iFin. And this fintech connects banks with retailers and allow retailers, consumers to purchase any product from cars to homes to actually TV sets through Islamic financing products or loans. And the second company that you're talking about, which is Trice, it's a startup that we built that allow us to address the international trade finance based on the new distributed general ledger technology, which is the blockchain. And we created an international trade finance platform that allow all the participants to actually participate in that platform and democratize the process completely. We used to, in the old days, as you know, or actually currently until now, the banks dominate this process, and the trade finance is heavily documented with a lot of paperwork and a lot of forms, and it's really very cumbersome. So what we did is we actually created this platform that allow to host digitally all the participants from regulators, insurance, banks, and of course the exporter and the importer, and we do the full process through that platform.
Thank you. I want to also acknowledge and congratulate. We're at a IDB's Private Sector Forum, and one of the goals is to develop the private sector's successes. And I find Path Solutions' story as a success story, and having been acquired and going through that cycle of building an institution that is now transitioned to be further developed as you're doing. So I wanted to also acknowledge.
Thank you for
just highlighting the point you mentioned about, I didn't want to just start and use the word blockchain or AI, because we want to really look at the use case. And your project Trice, what you're articulating and showcasing is how the distributed ledger platform, which is blockchain, is enabling document authentication or trust building verification, and it improves and brings efficiency to the processes. So I think this is a digitalization of the trade finance part that is being enabled. So thank you so much for that perspective. I'd like to next, if I can come, Dr. Ahmed Mansour. Excellency Sharif highlighted Egypt Post's overall digitalization initiatives and strategies. Can you speak to how some of the initiatives, today the Post service play a big part in supporting SME businesses. When we look at e-commerce, which a recent study by McKinsey highlighted about 10% of the global GDP is being facilitated by cross-border e-commerce. What are the types of solutions that Egypt Post is enabling to facilitate SME businesses or businesses online and so forth?
Okay. Thank you for the question, and I would like to thank you all for attending our meeting today, and I would like to thank also the Ministry and the ISDB for this wonderful events that actually discussing a lot of things that's related to what's happening around the world in these days. Egypt Post, actually, as mentioned by Mr. Chairman, is one of the biggest financial institutions in the country that's been serving Egyptian people for almost like 150 years now. So we have a lot of trust that have been built with the Egyptian people, especially when it comes to delivering their services, even if it's governmental services or financial services, or even the postal services, which is the main backbone services that we deliver to the Egyptian people. Currently, we have seen that the new normal that have been affecting the world after the pandemic is changing everything around us, especially when it comes to the digital transformation. So the journey actually of the digital transformation have been much boosted by the pandemic and what's happened after. And this is why they call it the new normal that we are living in. And one of the major things that we are focusing on after that is the e-commerce platforms and what we are doing, because we are the main logistic arm in Egypt that applying all the supply chain supporting for the Egyptian people. So we have been actually working on a lot of projects, governmental projects, to apply the main e-commerce for delivering the services, for building a new platforms that can serve the people. But when it comes to the whole picture that you have to apply here in the e-commerce, you will find that you will need also to apply a lot of things while doing it. One of it is the awareness for the people about the digital services, about the digital channels, how to use it and how to start using that technology actually in the business. And this is what we are also focusing on. We have been doing also a lot of effort with the Central Bank of Egypt to serve the financial services by serving the financial technology. We even have an innovation hub that we are creating also now in the support of ITIDA and the Ministry of Communication, and also with the Central Bank and other banks in the sector. This is actually not just to have the fashion trend of having a fintech hub or having an innovation hub or something like that, but actually if you look at the market, you will find that you need to start supporting the small companies, you start supporting the youth to deliver the services to the people using the digital channels. This is one of the major things that we are focusing on.
Great, thank you. Osama, I wanted to come to you next. Your firm, Al-Faris International Group, has been among the leading providers of e-banking solutions in the MENA region. What are some of the key areas that need to be need to go through digitalization to drive cross-country regional trade and investments?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa bihi nasta'in. Very interesting question. I believe technology is not the issue here at all. Technology can do anything, and I think we all understand that. Whether through digitalization or digitization, whatever it is. The real problem here, or the issue, is the cross-border regulations, and there's no standardization of documentation, and that is the biggest challenge. I wear another hat. I'm with the ICC, the International Chambers of Commerce, and I represent Saudi Arabia in the Banking Commission. And digitalization of trade has always been in our focus, and we're trying to do a lot of things, but again, the thing that really stops the real wide implementation of digital trade is really to bring the regulators together and for them to talk about the same set of documents or set of requirements, because these really differ from country to country. And I think that's the real challenge that we have. Once we do that, and I believe our forum here, and I really thank ISDB for this wonderful forum, and Isaac, if we can really come together as the Islamic nation, and then we agree on these rules, the technology is just so easy. And I would like to say something about the technology. What we see today when we talk about blockchain is something of the past. That doesn't mean it's no good, but it's evolving. Just like when first telephones were only used to call, and then GPRS came along in the early 2000s. If you think about GPRS by itself, it was a failure. However, if it wasn't for GPRS, we would not have seen 3G, 4G, and 5G today. And I believe that what we see in technologies today, in the blockchain mainly, is nothing but the beginning of the true transformation of the way we do, whether it's communication or, because now if you talk about blockchain, it's about distributed ledgers. And now we already see that there's hyper ledgers, there's book ledgers now, which is even much faster, a much bigger implementation of blockchain. So technology is not an issue. It's really about the regulations.
Great. I think that leads me to Emeka as building on what Osama said. If technology is not the issue, and you as the Senior Manager Innovation Product Development at Afrexim Bank, which is a multilateral, and in your experience, how do you relate to Osama's point about technology not being the issue, and please share some of the experiences you're having and what you're developing.
No, thank you so much. First, it's a pleasure to be here among these esteemed panelists. So the Afrexim Bank is a multilateral institution with a mandate to promote intra and extra African trade. So in activities, we grapple with these issues around how do we promote trade in Africa. African trade is about 14-15% compared to the high 60s in Europe and 58% in Asia. So it's a real impediment that we're trying to solve. And I agree exactly with what he said. Tech is not the issue. The issue is how do we come together to actually provide a series of solutions that solve these problems. So for the Afrexim Bank, what we've done is we have an initiative we call the African Trade Gateway. This gateway is really targeted to speak to the key issues that we see in intra-African trade. So let me give you an example. So, you have an SME in Egypt who is looking to export or grow his business in Africa, access new markets. The issue he has really is where does he find information around what is possible for him, right? New markets, opportunities. It isn't really possible right now. I mean, you could do a lot of Googling if you want to. There's no reliable place to do that. So through the ATG, the gateway, we're putting it together. And even if he doesn't find that partner he's looking for, how does he even trust? For example, he finds a partner in Nigeria. How does he actually grow that trust to be able to actually conduct that business, right? So we've created a KYC platform that helps actually grow that trust between counterparties as well. And again, let's say now we agree to do business. The issue now is how do I take payments? These are simple issues that in Europe, you don't have that problem. Well, in Nigeria, there's Nigerian Naira. In Egypt, Egyptian pounds. It's not compatible, so we use US dollars, right? Well, we've created a Pan-African payment system that will enable the buyer to actually pay Nigerian Naira and the business here to receive Egyptian pounds instantly. And to the point that has been made here, so once payment happens, we've also made it possible to access financing, not only from Afrexim Bank, but our key partners here as well, that will allow you to actually, in one single platform, find financing required to conduct that trade. And finally, how do I get my goods across border? So through that same platform, we're bringing together all the requirements for regulations that allow you to move goods in any border in Africa. So just an example of what we're trying to do, leveraging, I should call it, leapfrogging technologies to bring this to bear in our continent. Thank you.
Thank you. So, great point. Again, you endorsing the point that besides technology, coordination from regulators and so forth. So, Rasha, coming to you, since you're representing the central bank, certainly the sandbox. Speak to us about the sandbox, and if there is some thinking about how regulation-wise are you thinking about technology, fintechs, or innovation enabling cross-border aspects. If there is thinking around that too. But first and foremost about the sandbox.
So the regulatory sandbox is basically like for any solution or any idea that the startup wants to launch in the market, and yet it has a regulatory hurdle, or it's not regulated, or it doesn't have like the regulatory endorsement. So basically what we do is like we put them in a test environment which is very contained, and we test the solution together for the sake of how we can actually issue it in the market in a more controlled and having like all the right controls of a consumer protection and cybersecurity and everything contained within the solution. So coming into the cross-border thing, and this is something that us as a regulator talked before, is like one day hopefully we're going to have like a co-sandboxing, where how can we try out solution that is happening in one jurisdiction with our jurisdiction, and this is like something that we keep on exploring, and I know that every regulation is different from one jurisdiction to the other, but hopefully we can actually land into a co-sandboxing in something like the cross-border remittance or anything of a great need in the two markets that we can actually test together.
Great. It points us to the OBIC initiative that earlier we saw the video, which is as you can see, it's quite an ambitious, Osama, you were saying it's quite an ambitious project, but certainly something that can be achieved and will be super valuable, which is a cross-OIC or the IDB member country credit intelligence sharing and a quality platform. Why don't we open the floor for some questions rather than going another round, given the shortage of time, and we'll circle back. So if we can take some questions, I see a hand up back there behind the camera. If someone has a mic that we can get to, just state your name and ask the question, please, and then I'll come to the next question here. I think it's, can someone get a mic down to the person here? All right. In the meantime, I will take the question here, and then I can repeat it because we'll probably be able to hear. Please go ahead. Can you stand up if you don't mind and just state your name and the question? All right, and I should probably say we should limit to the topic at hand. Otherwise,
no, that's fine, because till now we're since we've put the law back in 2020, that so far we're not endorsing the crypto as the Bitcoin world, but we're heavily studying the central bank digital currency, and we're doing efforts regarding this. So this is like the short answer of it, so you can know. But we can actually talk to it more when we step into this panel and talk about it more.
Right. Thank you. All right. Yes. Sorry, we don't have the mic, but yeah, if you can just. Okay. So the question is, how does digitalization, which is going to make jobs redundant, so what are the efforts to upskill or make sure there's new jobs created?
Okay. Thank you for the question. Well, actually, from this question, I would like to also reveal some points that can answer the question about, yes, there is some jobs that's going to be vanished. Yes, of course. And there is a lot that's going to be created because we are opening a whole new sector. This is the digital transformation era. We have a lot of business that's been created. We didn't hear about it. Even when you go to universities these days, you will find out that there is specialties that have not have been there almost like 10 years ago. On our side as Egypt Post, we have been for the last 2 years as our strategy that have been set by the board and the chairman that we have to go into digital transformation. We started investing in a lot of sectors that we were not investing in before. So we will find that the Egypt Post is investing currently in the consumer finance, in the microfinance, even on the blockchain, by the way, we are investing in doing some NFTs. So we are discussing if we can do it for stamps. So there is a lot of projects that have been created, that's been studied, that have been thinking of these projects and all these investments is going to create a lot of job opportunities for the youth. And if you are talking about the old version of jobs that we know, by the way, youth and the millennials are not interested in these jobs anymore. Like, they are not interested in going and visiting branches like the old style that we used to do. They are into the digital world, so you have to
digitization is actually attractive to the youth.
It is. Yes.
Yeah, very, very quickly, and we're one of the country. I think the whole region is very like you're saying, like the median age is like 24 years old, 25 years old. So yes, exactly, like the new jobs or the jobs of the future are actually catered for this kind of youth. But again, and since we've started the strategy of the fintech, one of the big pillars is talent, and we made sure that we have a reskilling and upskilling for the existing employees, just to reskill themselves. How we can actually teach them from zero AI to like an AI expert to a certain point of time in their career. So yes, I think there's going to be a challenge of resistance to change and everything else, but I assume like everything is turning digital, so they have to come along anyway. So.
Mohammed and Osama, if you could speak a little bit to the talent challenge in general in our regions when it comes to the leapfrogging technologies that we're all now talking about that's going to help us leapfrog. Mohammed, if you could.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been following what's happening in the world in the last 12 months, but there has a huge, they call it the great attrition, where basically and that includes the whole world, including the US, a huge number of people just quit their jobs. And we have serious problem in the technical space. Actually, when Brother Osama said technology is easy, one of the biggest problems I think right now with technology is the availability of resources, and the availability of the resources and the talent who actually understand the technology in depth. I hear a lot of discussions. Almost everybody is a technologist. Everybody can talk about the technology. But actually, when we try to recruit people who actually understand these advanced technologies, they are competent in AI, competent in blockchain. This is absolutely not there, especially in our region. And even in the US and Western Europe, they're having problems finding these talent. So definitely we have a talent crisis worldwide, and in technology specifically. And I think right now a lot of banks and a lot of organizations, almost every organization, want to create an innovative unit inside of them. So they're competing all of a sudden with the IT companies and the technology companies for this talent. So definitely we have shortage of talent.
Osama, how do you see it in Saudi Arabia or in the region in general?
Yes, I totally agree with Mr. Muhammad that there is a huge shortage of talent, and it is global. Even the wages have just skyrocketed, and it's not because of not that the resources are not available. It's just like the implementations and the spur of so many fintech companies that is coming about. So let's say I have a company and I have 20 guys or 30 guys or even 100 guys that are working, in the technology. But then a fintech company comes and that only needs 2-3 people. They're ready to double and triple the salary because they're such a small company, and they can do that and build a platform and start offering solutions. And that's really the main cause of the lack of talent. It's not like we don't have the talent. The talent is there. It's just been so dispersed on a global scale. And we've seen this even at the Tatas of the world or the Wipros, those gigantic Indian companies that they have almost unlimited resources. We see that they have huge attrition. A lot of people are leaving them to go to the fintechs, and that's mainly the real issue. And I agree with Muhammad is that I do that myself in our own company. Like we always go to the fresh grads. We bring them from the universities. We put them on a 6-month training course. let them come up with the technology, to understand the technology properly. I totally agree with Mohammed. It's not like it's a matter of a couple of days and you're an expert in blockchain or what have you. But you really need, you bring in experts, you bring in professionals, and you put them on a crash course that is a 6-month crash course that teaches you about technology. Then you start to become productive. And I think that is the way, and there is room for a lot of people, to be part of this, ever-changing world.
It's potentially an item for the IDB group or ISEC, because as a multilateral, enabling some talent development to enable transformation, because we see the stats in. We just have one last quick question, and then we'll have to wrap up. Please, ma'am. Yes.
There's no mic.
There's no mic. I'm sorry. I'll try to repeat your question if you can stand up and just. You can just state your question, or I'll repeat it.
Thank you very much. According digital transformation, I think that we can talk about Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0. We have to promote Industry 4.0, which use digital on different sectors: finance, trade, agriculture, industry, etc. I would like to invite all of you in Senegal at Dakar at February 10 to 12. We have to discuss about mobilizing research for African development and promoting Industry 4.0 in partnership with IEM Congress of Dubai. All of you are invited in Senegal at February 22-3. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll be there. I'd like to conclude. I know we've gone over time, and certainly I think I always say that we don't have any organization like the IDB, and we're blessed to have the IDB. I'm always very grateful as a private sector that's looking at all member states, both less developed and developed, and bringing uplifting the society and our communities that are suffering. So to conclude, I'll just try to summarize. The session was about digital transformation. I hope you were able to see some applications of digitization, digitalization affecting trade and finance. One of the key highlights is it's not really about the technology. I think we get hung up on blockchain and AI. It's the application and how it can be facilitated with the support of government, engagement of talent and private sector, and ultimately to affect change and bring efficiency to the financing ecosystem that we're talking about. I'd like to thank the panelists. Please join me in thanking all of them. I think this was a great discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to all the panelists, and just before you leave, Mr. Yasser Alaki, Senior Manager of the Development Department for ISEC, would like to present you to the panelists a token of appreciation. He's presenting it on behalf of this year. knowledge. We are now going to have a quick presentation from Mr. Mahmoud Hosni, the Chief Investment Officer of eFinance Investment Group. He is going to deliver his speech right now. Please step up, Mr. Mahmoud Hosni, Chief